Hi lovelies, I'm Queen Lovely. Welcome back to my page, Melanated Crowns. If you are new here, please be sure to subscribe and hit and enable that notification bell if you like what you hear. And make sure you comment below and hit that thumbs up because it really helps me get into the algorithm. So I wanted to come on here and address something that I seen. A very popular YouTuber who caught a lot of backlash and lost a lot of support from Black women periodically, made a post, as you can see here on the screen, asking, what's up with the double standard when I refer to, OG from Basketball Wives, the hit VH1 reality show, as a monkey, and says she looks like a monkey, or when Evelyn Lozada posts the emoji or says it's a big problem. We're colorists, we're this, we're that. But when Asian doll calls JT a monkey, silence, crickets, nobody says anything. And here are my thoughts. So being one of five, having four brothers, I grew up in a house where I had three older brothers, one younger brother. I was the only girl. Anybody who has lots of siblings or whatever the case may be, or even if you have one sibling, cousins, you know there's been situations in your life where you're running with the crowd, you're doing what you're not supposed to do, or you're trying to emulate or imitate an action of your sibling or your cousin, and you get caught and you see that you're being reprimanded very harshly, but the individual who wrote the playbook that you just tried to exude, you don't see that. And then it goes, but this person is doing that and that person is doing that, and y'all don't say nothing, but when it comes to me, this, that, and a third. That takes me back to when I was a kid. I'm a grown woman now. I'm 25 years old. And one thing that I can honestly say that I appreciate is individuals in my life on a regular basis that have no problem with holding me accountable, that have no problem with putting me in my place, and have no problem with taking me to task. Now, of course, there is always a right and wrong way to do things, but even if it is done the wrong way, I'm the type of person where I'm still going to take what I was supposed to receive in the first place, which is the lesson, and I'm going to apply it because I am committed to being the best version of myself. What I don't understand, and we talk about accountability all the time, is this thing where it's like when it's time to be held accountable, we want to deflect to someone else that has done, if not the same thing or worse, and say, but what about them? No, it's about you. It starts with you and it ends with you. And what I encourage and suggest to that blogger and to anybody who, has that mind frame, well, if y'all gonna drag me and hold me accountable and throw me up on the cross, y'all need to do it to this person and that person. Learn to worry about yourself, because at the end of the day, you could walk around and evade accountability and get away with whatever you want to get away with. But like Funky Dineva always says, you either pay in the front or you pay in the back, but you're going to pay. Nobody escapes God. Nobody escapes that higher source of energy that we're all an extension of. And I feel like what's happening these days is we've become so accustomed to residing on a frequency of vibration that is very low that now typically where it's like, okay, I know I'm doing wrong. I know I'm doing dirt. I know I'm not being my best version right now. I'm dwelling more in my, left side of my duality, because we all have the duality of good and evil. Instead of just acknowledging when your hand gets caught in the cookie jar, or acknowledging when you line step and you go too far over the cliff, it's just this big parade of let's evade accountability by deflecting and defending our actions that is wrong. You have to know it's wrong. This blogger is a grown man. And it's like, what are we fighting for? Are we fighting to be able to degrade Black women? So is the argument, when I degraded a Black woman, I got canceled and I got in trouble for it. But when this Black woman is degrading another Black woman, y'all not saying nothing about that. And then you want to bring Evelyn Lozada into it. And it's like, Evelyn Lozada is a white Hispanic. She's a Puerto Rican. She has no ties to Black culture culturally. So I don't even know why she's in the equation. Nobody, including myself, should be saying any derogatory comments about anybody. Let's start there. But we are human. We do get in our bag. Sometimes we do have our little things to say. And sometimes we take it too far and we don't understand the weight and heaviness behind our words. So I just want to encourage those that are listening. Don't fall into that habit of every time somebody is trying to give you constructive criticism, every time someone is trying to shine a light on your shadow side and tell you, hey, this is what you need to work on, whether it's good, bad, or different. Don't get into that habit of being defensive or deflecting or being creative or trying to do a mental gymnastics or a Jedi mind F on how to manipulate people into saying, oh, you know what, my bad, I was wrong, you were right, because that's gaslighting. It's always been a derogatory comment to call a black person a monkey, a gorilla. That it's always been derogatory. We get compared to animals like that because they try to say our features mimic that of a bestiality animal such as a gorilla with the big lips and the wide nose and so on and so forth. And it's like, okay, if you don't think OG is pretty or you don't think this dark-skinned black woman is pretty, that's fine. But it's like this social media culture has us on automatic where it's like we feel like we have to share our opinions with the world. And on top of us not thinking before we use our 180 characters on Twitter, it's also this added effect of wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting to be recognized, wanting to get a virtual high five for being shady and for gagging and roasting. So you're not even taking into consideration what your words could be doing to this person's spirit, to this person's mental and emotional state of being. You're just worrying about going viral. You're just worrying about being known as, oh, I know he or she is going to say this and that, and she going to roast and gag. And that's cool. Everybody has their own journey. Everybody, life happens in stages. I used to be that type of girl too a few years ago. But for me personally, I've learned if my come up and my coin and my claim to fame is on the heels of somebody's downfall and their spirit being broken and dismantled by my words and by my cruelty, whether it's intentional or unintentional, I personally can't sleep well at night knowing that I intentionally or unintentionally played a part in doing that to somebody, especially when you get to places in your life where you know better. See, it's one thing when we don't know better, so we can't do better, but when you know better and you're still fighting to be excused for those moments where you know better and you don't do better, there's some growth that needs to happen. There's some introspection and some reflection that needs to happen. There's a cleansing of your ashe that needs to be taking place, because we should not be fighting or arguing about why this person gets to use a derogatory word against somebody within our community and why you can't. None of us should want to do that. Those two women were having a war of words, and she called it that. And in my opinion now, the reason why people probably are not triggered by what Asian Doll said to JT is because JT has a long history of being a colorist and talking about people's features and people's textures of their hair. She just had this whole scandal where all of her old tweets came up where she was talking about multiple people and people's heritages and whatnot. And people like to try to excuse that behavior and say, well, that's the culture in Miami. That's this and that's that. Listen, I'm from New York. People say New Yorkers is mean and we give it to you straight. But I have sense enough to know that when I'm interacting with people, everybody is not going to be for that straight, no chaser type of talk. So you have to use discernment and know when and when not to. But once again, because we are living in a time where there's no repercussions, there's no stipulations, there's no consequences, there's just an agenda to further normalize things that should not be normalized, this is where we are. We are now asking, why is it okay for this black woman to call this other black woman a monkey, but me as a black man and this white, Hispanic, Puerto Rican woman, why can't she call a black woman a monkey? That's where we are. And this even brings me to like that whole situation that's going on with Real Housewives of Potomac, with Jamal Bryant, where he's supposed to be a pastor. Now, I don't watch the show. I ain't got a dog in the fight. I couldn't give you a rundown of anything about that show, but it's been circulating in the blogs literally for a year straight consecutively. There's always something in the blogs about it, so I feel like I watch the show now. And apparently on behalf of his wife, who was verbally attacked at the reunion by another cast member named Monique, he decided to come out and clap back. And, you know, you have people that's like, well, he has a right to defend himself. He has a right to speak his piece. Once again, heavy is the head that wears the crown. If you decide to take on this title of being this pastor of this mega black church or whatever the case may be, there's a certain way that is expected of you to present yourself so that people can have faith that, wow, this really is a person of God. He really does have an anointing on him to speak God's word and connect to God in a way that I wish to connect to. I personally don't want my spiritual advisor or my pastor or somebody that I'm supposed to be learning from or obtaining positivity from not having enough emotional intelligence and maturity to fight the urge to get on social media and act like some teenagers. But you know, this straw man argument of, well, we all human, we this, we that. Yes, we are human. But once again, when you know better, you do better. And you go through certain trials and tribulations as in certain stages of your life so that when you do get to that stage of being in your 40s and your 50s, and now you're a pastor and there's this high expectation of you to conduct yourself in a certain way, you choose to go right as opposed to left. So yeah, that's that. I don't have no more to say about the situation. I just really want to come on here. I'm super duper big on accountability and, you know, introspection and reflection and just self-growth and evolution. And I feel like when you are somebody that has a big following and influence and you are perpetuating a narrative or an ideology that can further damage the black community, I feel like it is my responsibility to speak on it from my perspective. This is no disrespect to that YouTuber, to that blogger. He calls himself the Prince of Talk. So heavy is the head that wears the crown. You the king of YouTube or whatever the case may be, the black sector. And you put that tweet out on public. So I just wanted to come on here and give my 2 cents and add some perspective to why people may not be triggered by these 2 black women tearing each other down, but they're triggered by you and a white Hispanic doing it. Thank you so much for listening to this video and have a lovely day.